on R3 polynomials. So to start out with, we've got simplifying the expression. So number 12, 3y to the fourth times negative 6y cubed. And so I'm multiplying these things together. So I'm going to do, I'm going to multiply the numbers and then I'm going to multiply the variables. So 3 times negative 6 would be negative 18. And then when I'm multiplying two variables and they have an exponent on them, what am I doing with those exponents? Adding them. So when I multiply, I add the exponents, so that would give me y to the 7th. Let's see, 20. In parentheses, negative 4xy cubed, and then another parentheses, 7x squared y. So I'm going to multiply the numbers and get negative 28. What happens when I multiply the x's together? What do I get?
X cubed.
X cubed. And what about the y's?
Y to the fourth.
Yep. 22. 35, this is in parentheses, m to the fourth times n times, another parentheses, so negative 2 over 7 m n squared. So I want to multiply the numbers first. Obviously one of them is a fraction, so I like to see if something top and bottom will cancel. And so I can reduce or cancel the 7 and this 35 because 7 goes into 35 5 times. So then when I multiply the numbers, I'm going to get negative 10. And then when I do the variables, what do I get for m? And what about n? Yep. So on those ones, we were adding the exponents, but if I have something like 26, in parentheses, negative 2x to the fifth, and then the entire parentheses is raised to the fifth, what does the whole thing being raised to the fifth tell me that I need to do, inside? Yep. So that's going to be negative 2 raised to the fifth power. And then what about this x to the fifth raised to the fifth? What is that going to end up giving me? Yep. So we multiply them. So we get x to the 25th. And then anybody know what negative 2 to the fifth power is?
Negative 32.
Negative 32, so this ends up being negative 32 x to the 25th. Let's see, 28, negative, and then a parentheses, 2x to the 0, y to the fourth, all raised to the third. So one thing to note on this one, what is anything raised to the 0 power? 1. So this x is just going away. It's becoming a 1. So I'm kind of ignoring that piece. So now What is the 3 outside doing?
Cubing everything inside the parentheses.
So what does that give me when you do that?
8 y to the 12th.
8y to the 12th. And that's as far as what's inside. We can't forget the negative out front, so make sure we throw that negative on there as well. Make that obnoxiously large. There we go. This is so blurry. Okay. Um, 32. This one's a fraction. We've got on top negative 5n to the 4th over r squared. And then it is cubed, the whole thing. So what do I do when I have a fraction like that being raised to a power?
Would you just cube everything?
Yep, I'm going to cube everything. So that would give me a negative 5 cubed. Then n is going to be raised to the 4th and then cubed, so that's going to be n to the 12th over, and we do it on the bottom as well, so multiply 2 times 3, so r to the 6th. Anyone know negative 5 cubed?
-125.
Yep, negative 125 n to the 12th over r to the 6th. One more thing I want us to see with one of these. 34 negative, and then the parentheses, p squared q cubed over r cubed, and the whole thing is raised to the 0 power. So what is that equal to?
Negative.
-1. Because anything raised to the 0, no matter what it is always equal to 1, and we have the negative out front, so. Good. These next problems say to identify each expression as a polynomial or not a polynomial. For each polynomial, give the degree and identify it as a monomial, binomial, trinomial, or none of these. So, 38, we have, okay, go away, negative 4y to the 5th. So is this a polynomial?
Yes.
Yes. So yes, it's a polynomial. What kind is it? Is it, or well, actually, let's do the degree. Well, yeah, let's identify the type first. Is it a monomial, binomial, trinomial, or none of those? Basically, how many terms does it have? 1, 2, or 3? 1 term, so that means it is monomial. And what degree is it?
5.
Yep, degree 5. It's whatever the power is. The highest power, I should say. 40. Negative 9y plus 5y cubed. Is this one polynomial? Yes. Is it monomial, binomial, or trinomial? Binomial. there are two terms. And what degree is this one? 3. So there's two terms, but I'm looking for the highest powered one, which is 3, so that's why we call it a degree 3. 46, we have 2/3 t to the 6th plus 3 over t to the 5th plus 1. So, is this polynomial? Are you sure? All right, so this one's a little bit of a tricky one. That's why I wanted to do this one. So when we're doing this, we need to make sure that all the variables are on the top, because when I do that, I have 2/3 t to the 6th plus 3 times, what happens when I move like something with an exponent from like the bottom to the top or top to bottom?
Negative.
Becomes a negative, so this would be t to the -5 plus 1, and this right here causes it to not be polynomial. We can't have a negative exponent for it to be polynomial. Okay, the next problems want us to add or subtract, as the case may be, for the given problem. So 52, we have 3 times 8p squared minus 5p minus 5 times 3p squared minus 2p plus 4. So anytime I do a problem like this, whether, well, I don't want to say whether it's adding or subtracting, whether there's a number in front of whatever is in parentheses when you're subtracting or not, I will always distribute that negative so that I don't have to worry about every time being like, okay, well, this is minus 3p squared or minus a negative 2p. I don't have to like think about it that way. I've already like converted everything to what it needs to be for it to work. Hello.
At some point when you're obviously teaching a class right now, there's everybody. I don't have Webster's. I don't have either Webster girls. I don't know if that's what she's doing today. She is gonna be there. But I don't know about like rules and stuff like that. So I'm gonna double check their files again and just see if maybe it was like completely overlooked at some point. But
I'll go talk to, when I'm done, I'll go talk to Ben.
okay. Yeah, even if he can like just pull something out.
Even if I can just get this page for today
Yes,
and I'll,
exactly.
yep.
So, and I'll send it to him. And then at some point, now's not the time, but at some point I do want him to sit down with you and have a conversation.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye, Miss Ray.
Bye, Cash. Have a good day.
Okay, so anyways, I'm going to distribute in both, since they both have a number in front and then also the one has negative, I'm going to distribute everything. But I'm going to do, I just drew the lines, but anyways, 24p squared minus 15p, and then over here, I've got to make sure that when I do this, what I multiply through, I'm multiplying the -5, not just the 5. So this is going to give me a negative 15p squared plus 10p minus 20. And then once you've done that, okay, and again, I would do that regardless if there was a number in front of the second one or not. I always do that part first so I don't get confused. Then you can combine like terms. So that's going to give me 9p squared, negative 5p, and negative 20. And so then that way that'll be my final answer.
Do we have to like, no, I don't think so. We can't like put them in parentheses, like 9x and x, or just leave it like that?
Hmm?
Never mind.
I don't know what you're trying to ask.
It's like,
like if they're like being multiplied together, like if it was like two parentheses back to back with nothing in between, that'll be multiplying, which we'll do in a second. Yeah, this particular little question set is just adding and subtracting. Let's see, 54. We've got negative and then a parentheses, 8x cubed plus x minus 3. And then plus a parentheses, 2x cubed plus x squared. And then minus parentheses, 4x squared plus 3x minus 1.
Question.
Yes.
If you were to add the front and the last one together, wouldn't the negatives cancel out because a negative and a negative is positive?
That's if you're multiplying.
No.
Adding two negatives doesn't make it a positive. Good thought, though. All right, so what I'm going to do is, obviously the one just has a plus sign in front of it, so that stuff's just getting copied down. The other two, I'm going to go ahead and multiply that negative through, so then I can just combine like terms. So negative 8x cubed minus x plus 3, and then I'm copying down the middle one because it's just plus, so plus 2x cubed plus x squared. And then the last one, I'm going to multiply that negative all the way through. So I get negative 4x squared minus 3x plus 1. And then I combine like terms. Sometimes when I do this, after I've like added terms together or whatever, I'll actually end up crossing them out to make sure I've got everything, especially when it gets kind of crazy like this one. But this one's not super bad. So negative 8x cubed and a positive 2x cubed gives me a negative 6x cubed. So then squared terms, I have an x squared and a negative 4x squared, so that's a negative 3x squared. And then I've got a negative x and a negative 3x, so that's a negative 4x. And then 3 plus 1 is 4. So then this would be my final here for that one. All right, so now the ones Tori was asking about, multiplication. So if I have something that's like, you know, a more basic one like 56, 5m minus 6 times 3m plus 4, what method are you typically going to tell me to use to do this? 4-letter word. FOIL. So, and I don't always like draw the little lines, but if you want to draw them, that's fine. So when I do that, I'm going to get 5m times 3m is 15m squared. 5m times 4 is 20m. Negative 6 times 3m is negative 18m. And then negative 6 times 4 is negative 24. And then I just need to combine the like terms there for that middle term. So I get 15m squared plus 2m minus 24. And when I multiply them, I usually try to follow FOIL, but sometimes I do what my teacher used to call phi oil. If you do that out of order, if you do like first, inside, outside, last instead of first, outside, inside, last, it doesn't matter as long as you get all the things multiplied. It really doesn't matter what order you do them in. But sometimes I have teachers that would do that, and so sometimes my brain flips them. So I don't care what order you do them in as long as you have all the pieces. All that to say. So, pretty basic one. We've done ones like this before, right? So, the next one is number 64, and it is r minus 3s plus t, in one parentheses, times, in another parentheses, 2r minus s plus t. So I like to call this one superfoil because there's 3 terms in each one, or even sometimes one will have 2 and the other one will have 3. And so what I have to do is I have to make sure I multiply everything by everything, if that makes sense. So when I do this, I have to do r times 2r, r times negative s, and r times t. Then I have to do the negative 3s times 2r, the negative 3s times negative s, and the negative 3s times t. And then ultimately, t times 2r, t times negative s, and t times t. So I have a lot more terms going on in this one. That's why I call it superfoil. It's still getting all the terms, but I don't know. There's not a fancy name for it, so I started calling that a couple years ago, and then that's what the kids started calling it. So anyways, that's what I call it. But working my way across, I'm going to start with the r1s, multiplying it by each piece over here. That's going to give me a 2r squared, and it's probably going to take up most of a line on your paper unless you write really tiny, so start as far to the left as possible. And then also, anytime we have multiple variables in a problem, when we're writing our answer, we want them written in alphabetical order. So like when I multiply r times negative s, I want to write that as negative rs. It's not wrong if you don't, but as far as just going forward and for simplicity, we want everyone to look the same, so it's easier to say alphabetical order. And then r times t, so that takes care of the first part. So then now the negative 3s times each thing gives me a negative 6. And notice it, if I did it left to right, it would be SR, but I want RS because when I combine like terms, it's easier to see if everything's the same. So negative 6 RS, then a negative and a negative, so positive 3s squared, and then negative 3s times t, so negative 3st. So that's that part. And then the t times everything. This is going to be plus 2rt minus st and plus t squared. So now the big thing with this is going through and making sure that I have all the pieces to combine the like terms of where I need to do that. And so all of the squared terms, there's only one of those, so I can just copy those down. And this is one where I am going to cross pieces out as I do it to make sure I've got everything. So 2r squared, cross that one out, 3s squared, cross that one out, and then t squared, cross that one out. So now I'm going to look at the rs pieces, and so I have a negative rs and a negative 6 rs, so that's going to be negative 7 rs. And I'm going to make sure as well that I don't have any more that I'm missing. I do not. So then RT is next, so I'm going to go over here. I found another one, so that's going to be 3RT. And then finally I have the ST pieces. That's all that's left, so that's going to give me a negative 4 ST. And that would be that one completed. Have y'all done multiple like these kind before? You've done them, maybe not. So they're not too bad. You just have to really pay attention and make sure you get all the pieces so that you don't like leave something out. But I use the cross out method to make sure I got everything, because inevitably, like almost every year, I have someone that leaves out like one little piece of a term because they weren't willing to just like go through and cross everything out and make sure. The other thing is, when you cross things out, don't like cross it so I can't read it. Like just put a little slash through it, because if something's wrong in your final answer, I go back and look in your work and figure out where did you go wrong, to figure out, you know, did you just copy something down wrong or what, so I can try to give you as much partial credit as possible. I'm all about the partial credit. So, see, 72. So this jumps into like another section of find the product. I don't really know why they do it this way, but anyways. But it's basically doing the same thing. The only difference is the terms inside have exponents on them. So we have 2m cubed plus n times 2m cubed minus n. So, what do I get when I do that? Or like, you can go term by term and tell me what I get.
4n to the 6th
Yep, add the exponents, good.
minus 2n. Wait, yes.
Yeah, you're right.
N to the 3rd n plus 2n to the 3rd n. And that's it.
You're missing one term. We should have 4. 1, 2, 3. The L of FOIL you're missing.
Yeah, but don't they cancel out because it's a positive and negative?
You're multiplying.
Oh, negative n.
Squared.
Yep. I got that original.
Now, these two middle terms are the same and cancel out. So that goes away. So you're left with 4m to the 6th minus n squared. Now, I just am curious, did you happen to recognize that this is a special type? Or do you know what it's called if you did? Does the words difference of squares ring a bell?
Yes, I remember.
So that means that it's really just the first term squared times the second term squared, or I'm sorry, the first term squared minus the second term squared. And we would have gotten there, but it's fine if you don't recognize that. We FOIL it out. That's also why I was, asking y'all to do this one. So it's totally fine. Some people think, one of my teachers used to be like, if you FOIL something that is a special type, they would just mark it wrong. And I was like, but if you don't recognize it, you shouldn't do that. So anyways, I don't do that. Some people do, but just know that. We already did one like that, so I'm not going to do that. Okay, problems are, I need to go back through because I skipped some of this stuff. 13, 19, 27, 29, 43, 53, 55, 63, 71 and 73. Now, 73, I didn't do one like it, but it's something where it has x plus y and the whole thing is squared. When you set it up, if you recognize that that's a special type, that's great. If not, then you can also rewrite it like this of x plus y times x plus y and just FOIL it. Now, that's not the problem, but just so that way you have that for reference. So, any questions on any of this? All right. So you have the rest of class to work on this. I need to run and do a few things to get ready